Well, hello everyone. I hope you are having an excellent summer. The purpose of my video for you, whenever you happen to be watching it and wherever you happen to be watching it, is to update you on some of the progress we are making in our summer preparations for the 21-22 school year. I'm going to talk to you about several different subjects, and you'll see in the lower thirds some of the headers so that you know what's going on. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the federal funding that we have received, and I want to dispel some myths. I think a lot of people think, well, the federal government gave out a whole bunch of money, now I can finally request, and then you can fill in the blank. That's actually not the way that it goes, as most people know who have been through some of these cycles. The federal government isn't that dumb. They don't just give you money and say, have at it. They actually give a lot of different parameters that we have to follow, and they're pretty complex. So I want to tell you a little bit about them so that you know what's coming. First of all, the federal government aligns with the state government in terms of making sure that the money that we spend is on resources that are research-based. And what that means is there are lists out there that we have to check, and we have to make sure that those lists correlate with what we buy. There are other parameters with regard to facilities and co-stars and lots of other things, but we want you to know that we are doing our very best to make sure that every single dollar ends up helping students and staff. Within the federal funding scheme, one of the things that we have to do is write an ESSER plan. It's ESSR, and I won't go into the acronym. All we really need to know is that it is a plan that says how we are going to address a lot of different things, like learning loss, like facilities planning, etc. And this plan there's no question that all of the plans that we have to do, our corrective action plan, our comprehensive plan, our ESSER plan, our federal funding plan, etc., all of these things are guiding us toward multi-tiered systems of support. And that's because there's been so much research, we know this, with regard to that process being the best to help students, and especially to help them equitably. Because we want to make sure that no matter our students' background, they are getting what they need. Not necessarily the same thing, because we know that students need different things. So the MTSS, or multi-tiered system of support programming, is where everything is guiding us, and it's where we knew we needed to go anyway. A lot of you have heard about PBIS and don't really know what it is. It stands for Positive Behavior Intervention Support, and it has a lot to do with MTSS, Multi-Tiered System of Support. These are phrases that get thrown around, and a lot of people don't understand them. Positive Behavior Intervention Support is a system that is created to help reduce unwanted behaviors, always a good thing, but increase wanted behaviors, or behaviors we know will help our students learn and grow and feel safe. Some of the pieces of that have been in our system for a long time. Some have not. One of those things is how we collect our data, how we talk about behavior from one level to another, how we address behavior at the building level and then into the classroom level. We know that we have work to do on this system. We're going to be doing that work and the multi-tiered system of support work at the same time. How are we going to do that? With coaching. And I will tell you that this would not have been possible if it weren't for the extra money that we are receiving, and I am so grateful for it. But for at least the next 2, possibly 3 years, we are going to have extra support for students and teachers in the form of MTSS coaches. And that's kind of the short part. They're not just going to do MTSS coaching, but it's going to be all about the process. It's going to be all about taking our curriculum, making sure that it's implemented well with good supports in instruction, and then connecting that to assessment. And of course, all the little stuff in between that makes classrooms work really well. Why is that so important right now? Well, folks, we're going to have something that we've not had in a long time. A plethora of resources. We've got Dreambox, we've got Lexia 5, we've got 95%, and all these different programs that are coming through. Read 180, Math 180. It's so exciting and yet scary at the same time. And there's going to be a lot to work out as it relates to utilizing these new resources appropriately. So it's not just a matter of, well, Mrs. Smith does it this way and Mr. Jones does it that way, and all the results are a mess. We've got to be coordinated. So that's the plan moving forward into this year. We're going to utilize, hopefully, in fact, thank you for those who have applied already. We're going to be utilizing our own staff to make sure that we're doing the MTSS process and the PBIS process correctly. And then we're going to make sure to support teachers and students in that process. Back in April, I told you that during the summer we were going to concentrate on 3 major things. Curriculum writing, those teams are up and running, and they are writing and revising curriculum as we speak. Summer school, which is going very well. Big shout out and thank you to the many teachers and support staff who volunteered their time during the summer to be with students. I've been in those classrooms. They're running great, and thank you everyone for volunteering. And finally, comprehensive planning. We're going to talk a lot about comprehensive planning, and I'm going to provide some links so that you can do some exploring. Right after school ended, we took about 60, 70 plus people from the school district. We're talking students, parents, staff, and put them all in a room, and we went through data like nobody's business, and we talked about where this district needs to go over the next 3 to 5 years. So I want to talk to you about a few things. Number one, we started with the portrait of a graduate. The old expression from Stephen Covey is begin with the end in mind. So that's what we did. We started with the school board of directors because ultimately they have to approve any plan that we present. And then we also talked about a portrait of a graduate. I can tell you that one of the things we want all of our graduates to be able to do is think critically. That showed up in the data everywhere. But there were other things as well, and you'll have an opportunity to see and evaluate that. We also talked about student voice, and I'm going to grab my data here, and you might be able to see it on your screen as well. We asked our students a series of really important questions, such as, when something is really bothering me, there's at least one adult I can talk to. And then they had to agree with that to one extent or another. Well, only 42.4% said that that was true. But there were other really good highlights in the data. How many of your teachers make sure that you are engaged in the learning activities in your classroom? We got a 90% rating as it relates to engagement, which was really, really positive. In fact, overall, our data was very positive in terms of students talking about their experience here. But there were definitely things that we know we need to improve. Some immediately, some will take more time. I'm going to be sharing these links with you in the email that I provide. I would encourage you to look through it. Make sure you understand what our students are saying, because you'll see a direct connection between the data that we have and the steps that we begin to take in the future. As we talk about our comprehensive planning, as we talk about the federal funds that we're spending in MTSS and PBIS and making our schools run really, really well, one of the things that we need to worry about is our data. You may have heard your principals talk about the fact that we have a data governance team that has been running years now. And we have been trying to clean up our data so that we know where it is we've been and we can better project where it is we're going. Well, we're creating some great databases so that we can begin to see in real time, hey, how are some of these resources going? Instead of us waiting till PSSA scores come out, we'll be able to tell in real time how our implementation of different resources are going, and we'll be able to make changes if we need to. Data governance is something that I care about and I know has made a positive difference in our school district. Look for more information on that in the coming year. A lot of folks are asking, COVID-19, what does this look like for school next year? I have a feeling that I'll be addressing this with parents and students as we get closer to the school year, but I want you to have a good preview of what the plan is. Number one, we are going to provide, and I would encourage you to sign up again for assurance testing. But Stephen, I've already got the vaccine. I don't want to deal with that. I understand, but with the Delta variant and with other health considerations and you being the best positive example for students and families, I'm encouraging you to do it. So it's not a mandate, nobody's going to be required to do it, but I hope that you consider it seriously and sign up for assurance testing. The goal is going to be to have that up and running by the end of September. We've got a lot going on in the beginning of the school year, so we'll give ourselves some breathing room, but by the end of September, and then when October, November comes around, we will be prepared. So assurance testing is number one. I do believe we will be starting the year without masks, and I do believe that it'll be possible, we'll be told we have to put the masks back on come the winter months. Spacing is still going to be a concern. We're going to keep all of our cleaning practices in place. And here's a big reality check, folks. I think that at some point, probably in the winter, synchronous learning might be back for all of us. I don't think we'll start out that way. In fact, I'm sure we won't start out that way. But synchronous learning, in terms of having students both in the classroom and at home, as we see coronavirus rear its ugly head in one way or another with students and families, synchronous learning is bound to come back. We'll play it by ear, and I'm going to hope for the best. But I'd also say let's plan for the worst. One of the big concerns that I've heard is virtual learning. Stephen, okay, we get the fact that we're going to have to do synchronous learning at some point for some time periods in some classes, but what are we doing about those students and families who they don't want to come back? Well, we know that, number one, we are going to have to take it one step at a time. We're not going back to the way it used to be last year, but we've got several different options for students, and I'm not going to get into a tremendous amount of detail. Your principals and guidance counselors will have this level of detail, but I'm going to lay it out for you pretty quickly. Number one, we're going to have what I'll call our independent learners, and they will have learning coaches, and they may be just basically listening into a teacher and doing a lot of it themselves. For those of you who say, that's a terrible idea, that was my first reaction too, until I saw other school districts who that's actually their highest PSSA achievers in this program. So it is meant for highly motivated students. So that's number one. Number two would be hybrid classrooms. We may have hybrid classrooms throughout the school district. That would be based on volunteer teachers who can do that sort of thing with some extra supports, but we think that that's a viable option. We're also going to have 100% virtual teaching going on throughout the district as needed and where required. What that will mean is that there may be, such as in 5th and 6th grade, we may have a teacher solely dedicated to students who are 100% virtual, no kids in front of them. We think that there will be at least one section of 7th and 8th grade doing the exact same thing. The program most of us know as VAL, or Virtual Alternative Learning, where students do it completely on their own, is definitely still an option and consideration that some students are going to take advantage of. And there are some other blended opportunities that we're going to use, maybe even some after-school programming as well. Thankfully, many of the numbers that you heard back in June are greatly reduced by half or less. So as an example, again, at the middle school, 95 families said, hey, we want virtual education all next year. That number is now less than 40. Thank you all for your continued and constant advocacy as it relates to fair funding. For those of you who listen to these updates and say, man, I just don't have time for that, I don't think it's effective, I've got some great news and hopefully reason for you to get on board with the advocacy team. Even though it was a small win and it's certainly not what we're looking for overall, which would be fully funded fair funding formula and $13 million more for the Pottstown School District, we were able to receive some extra funding that this year will be a $1.4 million boost, and moving into years beyond will be just shy of $750,000 more each year. I know what you're thinking, that doesn't sound like a lot in a $66 million budget. You're right, but it's progress. And I truly believe that it's been the relentless advocacy of educators who are standing up for their students that has made the difference. I can tell you this, in 5 years, it's been a long road of constant advocacy for our students, and we are turning the corner. So I hope you'll join us in more advocacy opportunities in the future. As we're rounding out the end of the summer, we are definitely hiring a lot of different positions. Thankfully, most of our professional positions are getting in place, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. But we've got other positions such as our paraprofessionals. We still need some virtual learning coaches and some of those key positions that are part-time, like our cafeteria monitors and things like that, because cafeterias are definitely going to look different next year, that's for sure. So if you know someone, or if you see advertisements put out by Emily through Facebook or Twitter or other things, if you can pass that along and or reach out to parents that you know are looking for jobs, that would be great, because we know we're going to have to be as fully staffed as we can be to be successful, and we're doing everything we can to make that happen. So thank you for your support. Well, I hope these updates have been helpful, and I hope that you take some time to scroll through some of the links and look at some of the data, as well as the goals for the comprehensive plan and a few other items. Please make sure to check in with your email and your principals so that you can be fully prepared. I also hope you are taking time off during the summer to relax, connect with nature, connect with family, get back to normal a little bit, and be ready for an awesome year. Folks, I've never been more optimistic about the effect we're going to have with students than I am today.